Good morning, everyone. My name is Katalin Jenet, and I am the marketing lead for Softline Eastern Europe. I would like to welcome you on our Data Modernization to the Cloud webinar series. This will be the first of the 10 30-minute sessions, and we hope you will find our content insightful and useful too. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A tab, and we will answer them either there or our presenter will address it if it requires detailed explanation. With this, I would like to hand over to our presenter, Mihai Kileber. Mihai, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Kata. Hello and welcome everyone to our session for today, which is about data modernization in a day. This is the very first in the series of sessions we will cover in the upcoming weeks, which is basically split into 10 separate parts. Let me first introduce myself shortly. My name is Mihai Kileber. I am a senior Azure engineer working for Softline since nearly 2 years now. My main focus areas are the SQL Server and also the Azure SQL services together with Azure infrastructure and also dependent components. I also own some of Microsoft certifications, from which the very most important is my current last one, which is the Microsoft Certified Azure Solutions Architect Expert. Let me also give you a short overview of Softline itself. Softline is a global company with more than 1,000 plus engineers and also developers worldwide. We are in more than 50 countries with more than 95 cities, and currently in the IT industry since 26 years by now. Let me give you also a short overview about our agenda and how we split this session about data modernization. First, we will cover in the 5 parts series. So the very first part of this 10-part session will be about the prerequisites, what you need and what you should have before you even consider to migrate your data estate to the cloud successfully. We will shortly cover the basic prerequisites, which is the topic of today, about resource providers, and we will create our first storage container. So we prepare basically also one of our storages to hold all the backup information or the data we would like to migrate. And then we will continue with other prerequisites like file shares, what we need to have for app services. We prepare our first SQL environment in the cloud. And in the second part, in the webinar sessions, the second 5 parts will cover the migration steps themselves. So let's start without losing any further introduction words. Let's start with our first part today, which is about required resource providers and storage containers, together with some theoretical background information, which you also should consider for a successful migration. Let me start first with the so-called digital feedback loop, which is Microsoft's digital feedback loop definition. Basically, from Microsoft, you get business applications which are uniquely capable of helping you the transformation of your business and enabling you to optimize your processes by connecting the key pillars of your business. So basically, when you watch these 5 points, or when you look at these 5 points, which I will tell you also what those means one by one and all together, you should be staying on a stable fundament to migrate to the cloud. Basically, a very first one for every business, which is very important, is of course your customer engagement, which is basically a deep understanding of your customer, which will enable you to design products and services that best meet their needs. When this customer data is built into the feedback loop, you can deliver more effective and personalized products and services. The second one is empower your own employees. Just like with the customer engagement, you also know that employees need the right information at the right time, but you also need to provide your employees with the tools they need to do their job more efficiently, of course. This means that these tools also need to be able to adapt to an ever-changing business landscape so that your employees can stay ahead of the curve. The next one is, of course, optimizing your operations. When you think as a company of digital transformation, you sometimes leave out the operations teams because they most probably are stuck on some legacy applications, or their user groups may not be the most tech savvy. But of course, you also need to consider that those days are changing. And then, of course, we come to the product's transformation. Of course, any vendor cannot make your products awesome for you. So basically, you have to take action. But the vendors can help you shift your vision from hindsight to foresight by providing the data and applications you need to make those key product decisions. Here again, a deep understanding of your customer will foster better product and service development by creating products that address customer needs, of course. And all this together leads to data and intelligence, where let me provide you an example of the mostly used or most commonly used BI platforms, which is basically Power BI and also Power BI or the SQL Server report server, which are applications of your choice, of course, for data visualization. But these analytics will help your employees make their decisions and reduce the complexity of static data. So basically, this is very important to start first with these 5 pillars. Why actually you should migrate to the cloud, or why someone considers a migration to the cloud? Let me give you some examples from customer perspectives, and of course what the benefits of cloud migrations are. Actually, there are many problems that moving to the cloud can resolve, but unfortunately not all of them. But let me give you some typical scenarios that will definitely give you a benefit for cloud migration. Let's say your application is experiencing an increased traffic and it's becoming difficult to scale resources on the fly to meet the increased demand. So this is something what you cannot do, let's say, quite easily or with 1 or 2 clicks in an on-premises environment, but scaling is a high benefit of any cloud infrastructure. Let's say you need to reduce operational costs while increasing the effectiveness of your IT processes. Of course, this is again something which is quite heavy or could be a quite heavy task in an on-premises environment. But of course, if you have a cloud infrastructure, then the IT tasks also change and can also be split quite easily. Or let's say your clients require fast application implementation and deployment, and thus want to focus more on development while reducing infrastructure overhead. Or let me give you another client example. Your clients want to expand their business geographically, but you suspect that setting up a multi-region infrastructure with all the associated maintenance, time, human, and error control efforts is going to be a challenge. So basically, you see that it has quite big advantages and also big benefits to migrate to the cloud. And the key drivers are, of course, the innovation enablement, the risk mitigation, and of course, the cost optimization. Let me also show a possible transformation strategy which innovates growth, for instance. Many organizations start their cloud adoption journey with the intention of saving costs on IT operations, of course. While the cloud can bring cost savings, Its larger benefit to an organization lies in enabling faster time to market for new products and capabilities. So basically, as the business and also the IT world and the world altogether is changing, you have the capability of adapting to these changes quite fast. So the real value of cloud transformation is the organization's new ability to quickly consume the latest technologies and rapidly adapt and respond to market needs. So basically, when you realize these values as one of the first organizations, then of course you will be in a better position. Determining an organization's cloud transformation maturity requires, of course, also careful measurement of both current maturity levels and the level of effort necessary to transition to the next higher state on CIO and also on IT level, of course. So basically, it's not only a business decision, but it starts actually with a business decision, but also, of course, based on your current IT knowledge and IT infrastructure. Let me give you 4 key examples of a cloud transformation journey and how CIOs and IT can navigate these steps actually successfully. Let's say the very first one is, of course, the global collaboration. So basically, improved collaboration is making its way into the strategy, which isn't surprising given the competitive advantage collaboration can bring. Creativity, innovation, and communication need to take place across the board. So basically, it is very important that all involved parties across an organization work together. Another important key fact is cloud security, of course. Organizations everywhere are being challenged to reduce costs while increasing productivity and performance, which is not always easy. To meet these challenges, organizations are adopting a cloud-first strategy that utilizes software as a service and infrastructure as a service, motivated by the idea of migrating apps to public cloud providers like Azure and benefiting from increased accessibility, business productivity, flexibility, and cost effectiveness. So basically, as I was mentioning quite at the beginning, the main driver usually to migrate to the cloud is the consumption of new technologies, which is quite easy, and of course the need for cost optimization. But there is also another very important factor which we face especially nowadays, which is the requirement of mobility. Mobility means that the number of employee-owned and managed devices, also known as bring your own device, being used for work is continuously growing each and every year. The benefits of bring your own device are of course well known. Not only does it enable and maximize a productive workforce, but it saves money by eliminating the need to buy individual employees their own devices. By allowing workers to use devices they enjoy and are comfortable with, bring your own device also increases employee satisfaction, which is of course true because I also on my own like to work on my own devices, which I know very well. And believe me that I had also the reason why, let's say, I bought these devices I like to work with. And of course, the comfortability with my own devices. So I do not need to work with something which I may not like. So that is also very important. And the cloud enables you also through cloud security technologies that a company can of course make also the workforce with such devices quite safe. So let's move on and let's have our first demo. I guess we all have here enough theoretical information. So let's see something in action. In the first demo today, I will show you the resource providers which are required, let's say, for an Azure subscription in case we are talking about migrating our data estate. So basically, when I say migrating our data estate, I mean we would like to modernize and move our on-premises databases from SQL Server to any SQL solution in Azure, for example. And the very first step is we must make sure that the required resource provider is registered. If it is not registered, then of course we need to register it. For that purpose, we go to our famous Azure portal and we open up our Azure subscription, where you can see my own subscription is an Azure sponsorship subscription, and I simply click on resource providers and I will check if my Microsoft SQL resource provider is registered. Of course, as I was creating also the demos for our sessions, I already registered my SQL Server resource provider. So basically, for me, this step is already done. Let's go to our next prerequisite for today, which is basically we prepare our storage account, or basically our cloud storage, and we create our first container, which will serve for us in upcoming sessions and upcoming demos as the storage of our database backup. We will move to the cloud, so I will be able basically to make a restore or make use of this storage container, so I can successfully migrate my own database to the cloud. For this purpose, we move to our on-premises machine because the tasks we will now perform will be done first on that on-premises environment, which I would like to migrate to the cloud, or basically which is hosting that particular SQL server I would like to migrate to the cloud. I also need to mention at this point that for these steps, we have basically more options how we can achieve these tasks. You have always the use of the Azure portal, which is basically your graphical user interface, and which makes it quite easy to deploy new resources or build up new elements in the cloud. But you also have the same possibility or even a broader range of possibilities when you are using PowerShell, or in some cases you can also use the Cloud Shell, and you also can use Azure CLI, which is basically platform independent. So you can use the Azure CLI, for instance, to create new resources also in a Linux bash. But let's see how this looks like. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm starting my own PowerShell as an administrator on this machine. And as the very first step, I will check first the version of my PowerShell get module, because I also need to update, of course, this particular module. And as we can see, this is still the very first version. So I'm simply going to update my PowerShell get module. This may take, of course, some time depending on the size of the package, because in case you execute any command in PowerShell, the very first thing it does, it downloads the package in the background, and then it starts the actual installation of the given module you have chosen. Once the installation is successfully completed, let's go and install the Azure Resource Manager package, so that we will be able to interact with our Azure subscription through our on-premises Windows PowerShell. As I mentioned just before, of course, it takes some time until the download finishes, because what it does in the background, it downloads the entire package, so the entire module, and once this is successfully done, then it will start the actual installation. By the way, you can also download the Azure CLI module the same way as I'm doing it for the Azure Resource Manager module, what you currently see on the screen. Just the command structure is a bit from difference. So basically, do not mix up the command set for the Azure Resource Manager module, and do not mix up also the command set for the Azure CLI, because both are quite the same, but still different. So basically, let me give you a short example. When you are using the Azure CLI, also from PowerShell, you start each and every command by simply typing in AZ. From that, you can know that you are using the CLI and not the Azure Resource Manager command set. For the Azure Resource Manager commands, you will shortly see in this demo when I start to create my first storage account, which I will do also in PowerShell, and also creating my own first container inside that storage account as a blob service. This is also very important. For now, this particular task will create a blob service. So we will use a blob service, it will create a blob container. So as you can see, once the package was downloaded successfully and installed, we import the Azure Resource Manager module. So we are basically, or we will basically be able to start our actual action and now interact with the Azure subscription. And the very first step, once you have imported and successfully installed the Resource Manager module, is to log in to your own Azure subscription, which you also can do in PowerShell. So basically, it will provide you a login window. Here, it is also important to mention that do not perform this particular step in the Azure Cloud Shell as well, or in the Azure Cloud Shell, because it won't be able to provide you that graphical login screen. So you may get some errors when it comes to the point when you log in. Of course, there are also other methods how you can log in from there. But this is not the content of this particular session now. So let's say we logged in using the graphical way, and it will present us the subscription which we will use. And once it is correct, we are actually starting the action of creating our new storage account, where we have to define, of course, its name. We have to define also the resource group name. So basically, we define all these values in some variables during the script execution. And once it's completed successfully, we get a short SQL statement from the PowerShell script, which is basically already in our clipboard. So as a next step, we simply log into our on-premises SQL server, of course, by using the SQL Server Management Studio. And we simply click on a new query, and then we simply paste the clipboard content into our new query window. As you can see, this is basically what we got from PowerShell, but there are some details still missing. So we go back to Azure, and now we check our storage account, which was created by this PowerShell script. So let me open the demo storage account, and let me go to the shared access signature, where we need to do some configuration steps. Basically, we are using the shared access signature to access our storage account from our on-premises environment. And what I will do is I'm simply changing the validity of this SAS token. So I can be sure that, let's say I'm changing it for a 1-year period, that I can be sure I will be able to use this access signature for the upcoming year. And once this is done, and also make sure that your time zone is correctly selected, then we click on Generate SAS and Connection String. Once we have done this, we can see that it has our SAS token generated and also the SAS URLs for the several services which we can use in our storage account. For the purpose of creating an SQL login, we just need the SAS token. So we copy the SAS token to a temporary location, and then we go to our container, which is our demo container. And then we check its properties, because in the properties, we will see the direct URL to our little storage container. And this is what we need also for creating our credential for the SQL server. So we will be able to access this container. And the credential in the SQL server is basically a combination of the URL for our storage container and the SAS token, which we will insert in these brackets. And also the secret is our SAS token. Just make sure that you remove the question mark in front of the secret, because with the question mark, SQL Server won't be able to correctly parse your SAS token, and you won't be able to access your account. And once the script is done, we click on create, and now we have our credential for our storage account. So we are able later on now to directly connect to our storage account. But before we do this, we verify that it has created our credentials successfully. And as we can see, yes, it has. Now let's connect to the storage account. For this connection, the credential is not required yet. The credential comes into action when we are coming to our first migration demo in this 10-part session. For now, I'm simply connecting again using my own credentials to my Azure subscription. So I will be able to select the given storage account and the given storage container so that I will be able to see what data this storage account already has stored. As you can see, I have a bunch of those things already in my subscription, but we make sure that I am selecting the correct one. And as we can see, I was able, of course, to connect to this storage account. And let's check shortly also the details if I can see anything in this storage account. Of course, I cannot see anything because this was just a new account which I created. So let me shortly recap what we have learned in this little session today. We had some basic theoretical information why one would consider a cloud migration. What are the key pillars which you should define in these strategies of your own strategies to migrate to the cloud? What are the key drivers which are considered by organizations why they should or would migrate to the cloud? We got to see also the first two prerequisites which are required basically as a starting point to a successful cloud migration. So basically we created or made sure that the required resource provider is registered, which in our case was the Microsoft SQL provider. And we created also our first storage account for this purpose with the first storage container, and also made sure that our SQL server will be able to access that storage container with the appropriate credential we created for it. And then we connected also with Management Studio to our storage account, so we verified that it is accessible. In case of any questions you may have, please feel free to reach out to your country's contacts at Softline. We are more than happy to answer any of your questions. And for today, my last task is to encourage you to go and try the migration steps also of your own to the cloud. And with that said, I would like to thank you all for your participation in today's session. I hope we could give you valuable information and that you enjoyed the live event. Thank you very much. Have a nice day and goodbye.